Welcome to the part 2 for our Network Plus lab. If you don't know how to get to it, YouTube, search Job Skills Share, click on playlist, and then this is the lab that we are talking about. This is the IT Network Plus Lab Talk part 2. So now we are in this lab. I basically went to our premium access, and now I can click on CompTIA, this one, the 007 one, which is the latest. And when I click on it, we talked about in our last video about these three sections. We are going to talk about network services and protocols, part 1, part 2, and part 3. Now part 1 is about something that you may need if you are working as a networking engineer, or sometimes you may be working as a system admin. These are protocols that you may come across sometimes, like you don't really work on these type of ICMP or ARP related stuff most of the time. So if you go there, you basically will have like a lab, and it will tell you that this will cover, like, explain the purpose and uses of the ports and protocols, protocol types like ICMP, and explain concepts and characteristics. And you can see right here, it's routing and switching, network traffic. And so most of the time when I see someone working on an ARP or ICMP, it would be probably more of like the Cisco guys or networking. But yeah, you can come across some system administrators working on, like, other stuff like ARP related issues with them. As you can see, there's a lot of commands that they're using, which is kind of useful to know. Like tracer is a pretty known command. Ping, you guys already know ping. I mean, this is something that you will start troubleshooting with. ipconfig, again, this is pretty well known. So you can see in this lab you will learn all of these things hands-on, because you will need it, and again, for your exam and also for your interview questions, this lab can really help. Now the next one that we will talk about is part 2, which is extremely important, which is HTTP port 80 and port 443, and even like other ports like 8443 and other ones like that we use a lot, and TCP and UDP. What is the differences between this? You will really get hands-on in this when you work on ASA, like firewalls, and then you need to know the differences between TCP connections and UDP connections. You may see a TCP connection pretty high, you may see a lot of UDP connections, and then you need to troubleshoot and find out things, what's going on. You may also troubleshoot certificate related issues, like for example, sometimes maybe you already have 443 port already running and it's not working, and you need to now troubleshoot how you need to fix this. And port 80, again, this is something that we use a lot in our normal daily life. I mean, there's a lot of products or local websites that you're going to be running from your servers that you may not need, or you may not want to buy a full certificate, and then you will be running it on port 80. So you need to understand what these are, why we really need these, because it's extremely important. Every website you go to now either running port 80 or are running on 443. Okay, so this is kind of like the lab that you cannot get away. This is something that you really need to know, and as an IT person you need to know this, because yes, we need to know all the troubleshootings and things like that, but think about it, most of these businesses, most of the places that you will work on, the main thing for them is going to be their website, because that's where they're getting money, their market is on there, their members are on there. So you really need to know this. Part 3, if you look at it, part 3 is another big one, like FTP port 21, and you may come across secure ports for FTP like 9090 or some other ports that you may want to give. But FTP is something that a lot of people are using, like and you will be working with vendors, and those vendors, and these are going to be your normal calls. The vendor will call you that, hey, what is your FTP address, what is the port of your server, or you may send them an email when you set up a vendor first time, and then you may want them to access your files, or you want them to drop big files. Like for example, 2 days ago I worked on a request where somebody wanted to send me a zip file of almost like 100 GB. So 100 GB, kind of these kind of big files, you really need FTP type of server or some other services, but most of the time a lot of people use FTP. Now even if they use something else in your learning process, if you know about FTP, everybody will respect that you know this even if there's something, some super cool, something new, they will still understand that at least you know something that is well known. So when you see these and when you do these things, this is also a benefit to you. When you know something that is known to the whole world in IT, then they will respect that, and then they will not test you against their own tools, which will not make sense, right? They just got the new stuff. They know that you're not going to know that, but at least when you tell them something about FTP and stuff like that, something that big that is known, then people will respect that, and they will hire you, and they know, because you if you know this, you're going to know the other things easily. SNMP, Telnet, these are the two things that you may come across when you're either Telnet. Used to be switches and routers, but now everybody is using SSH. As you can see on the bottom, there's SSH now, more like secure access to the switches and routers and other things. And then you also use SNMP for like scanning. Like for example, if you work with Spiceworks, it does scanning, and you need that, and for like routers to talk to each other and things like that. You may come across this type of scenario where you need to turn on the SNMP, and maybe something you need to install and you need to troubleshoot. So this may be a little bit more advanced, but yeah, you may come across it. RDP, well, this could be a very basic question in interview too. Like, okay, what is the FTP port? Usually, like common, normal FTP port, not FTPS. It's just FTP. So you will say, oh, it's 21, right? If you don't know this, then they know that this is so common that you should know. What is the HTTP port? 80. What is the SMB port? It's 445. These are very common ports, but they are well used, like in the companies. As you can see, when you click on the objectives, it covers and explains stuff. Like they explain the purpose and uses of ports and protocols, and then they basically, this is where you explain the SSH, explain 161, explain 3389, and sometimes you may be working on applications where you may not have access at that time to the internet, and you may use your phone for finding these ports, but it's good to know, because it saves your time. As you can see right here, SNMP monitor, VPN SH, VPN is FTPS. Again, this is right here, FTP, what I was talking about, the secure one. So you learn a lot in these labs, and if you go in there, as you can see, you will also start working on configuring them. So when you see configuring them, you get access to all these cool features inside the Windows or Windows Server, and then you also get your hands on, like for example, if you're setting up FTP right here, you're also working on IIS web server. So you can see right here, Internet Services IIS Manager. So when you work on something that is kind of like FTP, now you probably won't know anything about IIS, but at the same time, when you're doing this stuff, you're also learning something else, which is like IIS. So this is another cool thing about these labs, that you may be doing one thing specifically for one task, but you're actually learning something pretty bigger, like other things with it. So as you can see on the right side, this is where you will go and just click on the basically tools, and it will let you know that what do you want to do, what do you want to install something in this by watching these tasks. So this is it for today. We covered the three right here. We covered the three network services protocols labs in this. Of course, there are more than that. When the more we go into these labs, the more advanced we get, you're going to come across many other things that you can use in your interview and maybe for your job too.